This wedding isn't yours anymore. It's mine to end. The words slip from Marjorie Carter's lips like a prayer whispered in darkness. Her weathered finger hovers over the phone screen for just a heartbeat. Then she presses send. At 71 years old, with silver hair pulled back in a neat bun and wearing her best navy dress, Marjorie looks like any other proud mother at her son's wedding. But the recordings she just sent to every single guest tell a different story. 150 wedding guests. One devastating truth about to shatter everything. The chaos begins within minutes. Children start screaming. 15 kids under the age of 10, all supposed to be under Marjorie's care during the ceremony, break free like wild animals. They tear through the reception hall, knocking over flower arrangements and climbing on tables. Guests pull out their phones, faces twisting in shock as they listen to the audio files. The bride's voice crackles through their speakers, crystal clear and venomous. That stiff black old woman thinks she's so important because she used to be FBI. Please, she's just our free maid now. The whispers start spreading like wildfire. Did you hear what Amanda said about her mother-in-law? She called her what? And she laughed about her husband's military service? Amanda freezes at the altar, her white dress suddenly feeling like a spotlight. Her new husband Marcus looks around in confusion as guests begin standing up, shaking their heads, gathering their purses and jackets. Tables empty one by one. The wedding cake sits untouched, as families rush toward the exits, disgusted by what they've heard. But Marjorie just stands there, serene as a statue. Her dark eyes burn with decades of pain, but her face remains calm, dignified, like she's seen worse storms and survived them all. She turns and walks toward the door, her heels clicking against the marble floor with military precision. Each step echoes through the chaos behind her. Outside, she breathes in the cool evening air and allows herself one small smile. But how did it come to this? How does a 71-year-old grandmother destroy her own son's wedding? The answer lies buried in 3 months of planning, $3,000 of her own money, and 30 years of FBI training that taught her one crucial lesson: always gather evidence before you strike. It started with a simple phone call from Marcus, her only son. "Mom, Amanda and I are getting married in June. We were hoping you could help us out." Help. Such an innocent word. Marjorie had been alone for 2 years since her husband James passed away from cancer. A decorated Army veteran who served 3 tours overseas, he'd left behind a quiet house and a widow who filled her days with crossword puzzles and morning walks. She said yes immediately. Family was everything to her, especially after growing up in a household where love came with conditions and criticism cut deeper than praise. "We need someone to watch the kids during the ceremony," Marcus continued. 15 of them total. "And maybe you could handle the reception buffet? You know how good you are at organizing things." 15 children, a full buffet for 150 people, 3 hours of babysitting during the most important day of their lives. But she'd raised Marcus alone after his father deployed for months at a time. She could handle anything. "Of course, sweetheart. Whatever you need." What she didn't know was that Amanda had already been planning this conversation for weeks, planning exactly how to use the old woman who lived alone in that big house, with her pension and her FBI retirement fund. The request started small. "Could you pick up the flowers? The florist is closer to your house. The cake deposit needs to be paid today. Can you cover it? We'll pay you back. The venue wants the full payment up front. Just temporary, Mom. We're good for it." $3,000 later, Marjorie had funded an entire wedding that was supposed to celebrate her son's happiness. But late one evening, while delivering wedding favors to their apartment, she heard something that changed everything. Amanda's voice, sharp with irritation, drifted through the thin walls. "I can't believe she actually agreed to watch all those kids. My sisters are bringing their brats and just dumping them on her." Laughter. Her son's laughter. "She thinks she's so tough because she was FBI. Like that matters now. She's just a lonely old woman who'll do whatever we ask." More laughter. This time from Amanda. Honestly, having her handle everything is perfect. Free babysitter, free caterer, free wedding planner. And the best part? She actually thinks we respect her. The words hit Marjorie like physical blows. But she'd learned long ago, first as a child in a house full of cruel whispers, then as an FBI agent in a world that underestimated Black women, that the best revenge requires patience. She activated the voice recorder on her phone and pressed it against the wall. What she captured over the next 2 weeks would destroy more than just a wedding. It would expose 3 decades of manipulation, disrespect, and the kind of casual cruelty that families inflict when they think no one is watching. But Marjorie Carter had spent her entire career watching, learning, planning. And now, standing outside that ruined wedding hall, she finally felt free. Most people see Marjorie Carter and think grandmother. Sweet old lady with her reading glasses and careful smile, tending to her roses in Georgetown. They have no idea they're looking at a woman who once commanded federal operations against the most dangerous crime families in America. For 28 years, Marjorie Carter wasn't just FBI. She was section chief of the organized crime unit, the woman who walked into rooms full of hardened agents and made them listen, made them respect her. She built cases that brought down kingpins who thought they were untouchable. Men who controlled entire cities cowered when they heard her name whispered in courtrooms. But that was before retirement, before James died, before she became just another widow in a world that treats elderly women like furniture. I swore I'd never be used again. The words echo in her mind as she sits in her kitchen the morning after the wedding, drinking coffee from James's old army mug. Outside, Washington, D.C., awakens to another day. But inside her house, everything feels different. Changed. Her phone buzzes with angry voicemails from Marcus, text messages from Amanda's family, threats, accusations, the usual chaos that follows when someone's mask gets ripped away in public. But Marjorie just turns off the phone and opens her morning newspaper. She learned long ago that chaos reveals truth. And truth, once exposed, has a way of settling into its proper place. The scars run deeper than most people know. Growing up as the youngest of 4 children in a house where love was rationed and criticism flowed freely, Marjorie learned early that being useful meant survival. Her mother would send her to clean other people's houses at age 12, pocketing the money while telling everyone how proud she was of her helpful little girl. "You're good for something at least," her older sister would say, watching Marjorie scrub floors while the rest of the family watched television. By 16, she was cooking, cleaning, and caring for everyone while dreaming of something bigger, something where her mind mattered more than her willingness to serve. The FBI became her escape, her sanctuary, a place where intelligence trumped everything else. But even there, she had to prove herself twice as hard as everyone else. Being a Black woman in federal law enforcement in the 1970 seconds meant enduring whispers that she was just filling quotas, just checking boxes. Until the Marconi case. Vincent Marconi controlled drug trafficking from Baltimore to Boston. His organization had corrupted judges, politicians, and half the local police force. 5 different FBI units had tried to build cases against him for 6 years. All had failed. Marjorie spent 14 months undercover, posing as an accountant for one of his front companies. She memorized names, dates, transactions, and recorded conversations that would eventually put Marconi away for life. The day he was sentenced, he looked directly at her and said, "I underestimated you, lady." She looked back and replied, "Most people do." 27 more years of cases followed. Bank robbers, kidnappers, white-collar criminals who thought their money made them invisible. Each one learned the same lesson. Marjorie Carter saw everything, remembered everything, and never quit. But retirement brought a different kind of challenge. Suddenly, she wasn't Section Chief Carter anymore. She was just mom, just grandma to be, just another elderly woman whose opinions mattered less with each passing year. The phone rings, cutting through her memories. "Marjorie, You've got the whole city talking. Clarence Lewis, her partner for 15 years, her closest friend for 30. If anyone understands what yesterday cost her, it's him. Good morning to you too, Clarence. Don't good morning me. Channel 7 is running the story. FBI grandmother destroys son's wedding. They're treating it like some kind of soap opera. She can hear the concern in his voice, but also something else. Pride, maybe. The same tone he used when they'd successfully closed a case that everyone said was impossible. You still read people like crime scenes, he continues, his voice lighter now. Remember what you used to tell the rookies? Evidence first, emotion second, justice third. I remember. So tell me, Section Chief, how does it feel to finally be the one serving justice instead of just investigating the crime? The question hangs in the air like smoke. Marjorie sets down her coffee and looks out at her garden, where James's roses are blooming despite his absence. How does it feel? It feels like breathing again after holding her breath for 2 years. It feels like I remember who I am, she says finally. And who's that? A woman who doesn't get used anymore. Clarence laughs, the kind of deep chuckle that filled their office during late nights working cases. You know Marcus is going to keep calling. Amanda's family is probably plotting some kind of counterattack. You ready for that? Marjorie thinks about the recordings still stored on her phone. Hours of conversations that reveal not just casual cruelty, but a systematic pattern of manipulation that would make any federal prosecutor smile. Clarence, I spent 3 decades building cases against people who thought they were smarter than me. You think I'm worried about a 2-year-old and his wife? Fair point. But Marjorie? Yes? For what it's worth, James would be proud. He always said you were the strongest person he ever met. The conversation ends, but the words linger. James, her gentle giant who saw past the FBI shield to the woman who still carried childhood scars, who understood that strength sometimes looks like silence, and other times looks like burning everything down to save yourself. He would understand what she did yesterday. More importantly, he would understand what she plans to do next. Because Marjorie Carter isn't finished, not by a long shot. The family meeting happens on a Tuesday evening in March. Marcus calls it that, his voice bright with excitement over the phone. Mom, we want to sit down with you and go over wedding plans. Amanda has some great ideas. Marjorie arrives at their Georgetown apartment, carrying homemade cookies and wearing her best cardigan. At 71, she still dresses like the professional she once was, even for family gatherings. She expects discussion, maybe some input on flowers or music, perhaps a conversation about guest lists or seating arrangements. What she finds instead is a carefully orchestrated ambush. Mrs. Carter, thank you so much for coming. Amanda's smile is perfectly practiced, the kind Marjorie has seen on congressional wives and corporate executives. All surface, no substance. Marcus, her 0-year-old son, sit beside his fiancée looking uncomfortable but saying nothing. His engineering degree from MIT hangs on the wall behind him, a reminder of the brilliant boy she raised alone while his father served overseas. We've been thinking about how to make the wedding really special, Amanda continues, pulling out a thick binder, and we realized how much we need your help. The word help lands heavy in the room. Amanda opens the binder and begins reading from a typed list. We'll need someone to watch all the children during the ceremony. My 3 sisters are bringing their kids, plus Marcus's cousins are coming with theirs. 15 total, ages 2 to 10. Marjorie nods slowly. Babysitting. She can handle that. And since you're so good at organizing things, we thought you could handle the reception buffet. You know, coordinate with the caterers, make sure everything runs smoothly. The list continues. Setup, cleanup, managing vendors, handling last-minute emergencies. By the time Amanda finishes, Marjorie realizes she's been assigned every job that no one else wants to do. Of course, we couldn't afford to pay professionals for all this, Amanda adds with a laugh. Wedding costs are just insane these days. Marcus finally speaks up. Mom, you don't have to do everything. We just thought, since you have the time and the experience. The words trail off, but the implication hangs in the air like smoke. Since you're retired. Since you're alone now. Since you have nothing better to do. Marjorie sits in their living room, looking at her son's face and seeing echoes of the little boy who used to crawl into her bed during thunderstorms. The child who cried when his father deployed, who needed her strength to feel safe. For my son's happiness, she tells herself, I'll do it. I'd be honored to help, she says aloud. Amanda claps her hands together like a child getting her way. Perfect. We'll send you all the vendor information tomorrow. Over the next 6 weeks, Marjorie transforms into an unpaid wedding coordinator. She spends her Saturday mornings tasting menu options with caterers, using her own credit card to secure deposits. The barbecue buffet for 150 people costs $1,800. She pays it without blinking. Sunday afternoons are for decorations. Amanda wants specific linens, particular centerpieces, custom lighting that requires multiple trips to rental companies across the city. Another $800. The flowers alone cost $400, but Amanda insists on white roses and baby's breath to match the classic elegance we're going for. Marjorie's FBI pension covers it all, but each expense feels like a small betrayal, not of her money but of the respect she thought she deserved. Meanwhile, Amanda posts on social media about her dream wedding, sharing pictures of venues and flowers without mentioning who's actually paying for them. So grateful for family support, she writes under a photo of the centerpieces Marjorie spent 4 hours arranging. The comments flood in. You're so lucky to have such a helpful mother-in-law. What a blessing to have family who care so much. But late at night, when Marjorie is alone in her quiet house, old wounds begin to reopen. She's 12 again, watching her mother pocket money that Marjorie earned cleaning houses. You're good for something at least, her sister's voice echoes across decades. She's 25, the only black woman in her FBI training class, hearing whispers about quotas and special treatment, always having to prove she belonged. She's 45, working 16-hour days on the Marconi case while her colleagues go home to their families, knowing that any mistake would be blamed on her race, her gender, her very existence in their world. Now she's 71, and somehow she's back where she started, being useful, being used, being dismissed as just another pair of hands to do the work that matters too little to pay for. The breaking point comes 3 days before the wedding. Marjorie arrives at Amanda's apartment to drop off the final payment receipts for the vendors. She's about to knock when she hears voices through the thin door. Honestly, I can't believe how easy this has been, Amanda is saying. Your mom just does whatever we ask. Laughter. Multiple voices. I was worried she'd be one of those difficult mother-in-laws, you know? All opinionated and demanding. But she's like the perfect free service. More laughter. Marjorie recognizes her son's voice among them. The best part is she actually thinks she's being helpful. Like we couldn't handle our own wedding without her. Amanda's voice drops to a whisper. But the apartment walls are thin and Marjorie's hearing is still sharp from years of surveillance work. Between you and me, having that stiff black old woman handle everything has been perfect. She pays for it all, does all the work, and we get to take credit for the perfect wedding. The words hit like physical blows. But it's what comes next that changes everything. And did you see how she acted when I showed her James's old military photos? Like his service actually mattered. Please. The man probably never saw real action anyway. Cruel laughter fills the apartment. Marjorie stands in the hallway, her hand frozen inches from the door. Every instinct from 3 decades of law enforcement kicks in. She pulls out her phone, activates the voice recorder, and presses it against the wall. Evidence first, emotion second, justice third. Some lesson never leave you. The old skills never truly leave you. That night, Marjorie sits in her basement office surrounded by memories of her FBI career. Case files and storage boxes, commendation letters framed on walls. A photo of her receiving the Distinguished Service Award from the director himself. But tonight, she's not remembering the glory. She's remembering the technique. Surveillance 101. Documentation is everything. Patterns matter more than single incidents. And most importantly, never move until you have enough evidence to guarantee conviction. She opens her old equipment case, the one James always teased her about keeping. You're retired, Margie. You don't need spy gadgets anymore. Inside, wrapped in protective foam, sits a collection of recording devices smaller than quarters. Military grade, FBI approved, completely undetectable to civilian eyes. Her hands shake slightly as she picks up the smallest one. Age, maybe, or rage. She's not sure which. 2 days later, she volunteers to help Amanda set up decorations at their apartment. Mrs. Carter, you're so sweet to help with this too, Amanda gushes, her fake smile stretching wide. I just don't have time to arrange everything myself. While Amanda takes a phone call in the bedroom, Marjorie places the tiny device behind a picture frame on the living room bookshelf, right where Marcus and Amanda have their evening conversations. Her movements are precise, professional, muscle memory from 1,000 surveillance operations. All done with the flowers, she calls out sweetly. I'll get out of your way now. The recordings begin that very evening. Marjorie sits in her kitchen at midnight, headphones on, listening to hours of casual conversation. Most of it meaningless. Dinner plans, work complaints, television shows. But then, on the third night, she hears it. Amanda's sister is visiting. Their voices carry clearly through the apartment. So how's the wedding planning going? Is Marcus's mom being helpful? Amanda's laugh is sharp, cutting. Helpful? Try desperate. She's doing literally everything for us. Paying for everything, too. Really? That's amazing. I know, right? I was worried she'd be difficult. You know how Black women can be. All attitude and drama. But she's actually perfect. Like having a free maid who pays you for the privilege. The words hit Marjorie like ice water. But it gets worse. The funniest part is how proud she is of her dead husband's military service. She shows me these old photos like I'm supposed to be impressed. Please. He probably spent his whole deployment filing paperwork in some safe office. Laughter fills Marjorie's headphones. Cruel, dismissive laughter. She keeps talking about his Bronze Star like it actually means something. Honestly, they probably just handed those out to make the diversity numbers look good. Marjorie's hands begin to tremble. James. Her gentle giant who came home from Vietnam with nightmares and shrapnel scars. Who earned that Bronze Star pulling 3 wounded soldiers from a burning helicopter under enemy fire? James, who never talked about the war, except to say that some prices were worth paying to protect the people you love. The recording continues. And Marcus just goes along with it all. He's so worried about hurting Mommy's feelings that he won't tell her to back off. It's pathetic, honestly. What do you mean? I mean, she's 71 years old and acts like she's still important. Like being FBI 30 years ago matters now. She's just another old Black woman with opinions nobody wants to hear. The device captures every word with crystal clarity. Marjorie removes the headphones and sits in her dark kitchen, tears streaming down her face. But behind the tears, something else is building. The phone rings at 6 a.m. Clarence's voice, concerned and steady. Marjorie, you left me a voicemail at 3 inches the morning. What's going on? She's been crying for hours, but her voice is surprisingly steady when she answers. I need to see you. Today. They meet at their old spot, a diner near FBI headquarters, where they used to plan operations over coffee and pie. Clarence takes one look at her face and knows something has shifted. Talk to me. She plays him the recordings. All of them. Every casual cruelty, every dismissive comment, every laugh at her expense in James's memory. Clarence's jaw tightens as he listens. 20 years as her partner, and she's never seen him this angry. Son of a bitch, he whispers when the audio stops. Your own son is letting them talk about you like this? He's laughing along with them, Clarence. My own child. They sit in silence for a long moment. The diner bustles around them, but their table feels isolated in its own bubble of rage and grief. Finally, Clarence speaks. You remember what you used to tell rookies when they wanted to arrest suspects too early? Evidence first. Build the case completely before you move. That's right. And what else? Marjorie looks up, meeting his eyes. When you strike so hard they never recover. You built cases against mob bosses who thought they were untouchable, politicians who believed they were above the law, corporate executives who figured their money made them invisible. He leans forward, his voice dropping to the tone they used during operations. Now build one for yourself. That night, Marjorie returns to her basement office and spreads the recordings across her desk like evidence photos. She catalogs each instance of disrespect, each casual cruelty, each moment where they revealed their true feelings. Patterns emerge. Systematic manipulation disguised as family affection. Financial exploitation wrapped in wedding planning. Racial contempt hidden behind polite smiles. She creates a timeline, documents the expenses, cross-references the dates with the recordings. By dawn, she has what any federal prosecutor would call an airtight case. But this isn't going to federal court. This is going somewhere much more devastating. This is going to a wedding reception, in front of 150 guests, broadcast to everyone who matters in their social circle. Army-style revenge, James would have called it. Swift, decisive, and absolutely final. The plan takes shape in her mind, each detail clicking into place with military precision. 3 days until the wedding, 3 days to prepare for the most important operation of her life. Not an arrest this time. Something better. Justice. The morning of the wedding arrives with perfect summer weather. Clear skies, gentle breeze, 78 degrees. The kind of day that makes people believe in fairy tale endings. Marjorie wakes at 5 a.m., as she has every morning for the past 40 years. She makes coffee in James's old army mug and sits by the kitchen window, watching the sun rise over Georgetown. Today, she looks exactly like what she's supposed to be. A proud mother getting ready for her son's wedding. Her navy dress is pressed and hanging in the closet. Her pearls are polished. Her speech for the reception is typed and folded in her purse, full of warm wishes and motherly love. But underneath the performance, gears are turning with military precision. At 7 a.m., she calls Premier Catering. Good morning. This is Marjorie Carter. I need to cancel the buffet service for the Johnson-Carter wedding today. The manager's voice fills with panic. Ma'am, that's impossible. We've already prepared everything. The food is loaded in our trucks. I understand this is short notice, Marjorie says calmly. But there's been a family emergency. Send me the cancellation invoice. I'll pay any fees. But Mrs. Carter? What about the 150 guests? They're expecting a full meal. That's no longer my concern. She hangs up and immediately calls the florist, the decorating crew, and the cleanup service. One by one, she dismantles every arrangement she spent weeks organizing. Each cancellation costs money she'll never get back, but some prices are worth paying. By 10 a.m., she's dressed and ready to play her final role. The wedding venue buzzes with activity. Guests arrive in expensive cars, wearing their finest clothes. Amanda's family clusters near the altar, all bright smiles and designer outfits. Marjorie takes her assigned seat in the front row and watches her son fidget in his rented tuxedo. He looks handsome, happy, completely unaware that his world is about to collapse. Amanda glides down the aisle in her $3,000 dress, looking like every bride's magazine fantasy. Her smile is radiant as she approaches the altar. The ceremony proceeds flawlessly. Vows exchanged, rings placed, tears of joy from relatives who have no idea what's coming. You may kiss the bride. Applause fills the chapel. Camera flashes capture the moment. Everyone moves toward the reception hall, expecting celebration and the elaborate buffet Marjorie has been planning for months. Instead, they find empty tables. "Where's the food?" someone asks. Confusion ripples through the crowd. Guests check their watches, wondering if they're early. Children start complaining about being hungry. Amanda's face shifts from confusion to panic as she realizes the buffet tables are completely bare. "Mrs. Carter," she calls across the room, her voice tight with forced politeness. "Is the catering running late?" All eyes turn to Marjorie, who stands serenely near the back of the hall. She's holding her phone, finger poised over the screen like a conductor, ready to begin a symphony. "No, dear," she says clearly. "The catering has been canceled." Silence crashes over the reception like a wave. "Canceled?" Marcus steps forward, his face flushing red. "Mom, what are you talking about?" "I decided the family budget couldn't stretch to cover a reception dinner. I hope everyone understands." The lie hangs in the air for exactly 3 seconds. Then Marjorie presses send. Her phone buzzes as the mass email shoots out to every contact in her address book. Every wedding guest, every family member, every friend and colleague who knows Marcus and Amanda. The subject line reads, "The truth about your hosts." Attached are audio files, clean, clear recordings of Amanda's voice calling her a stiff black old woman and a free maid. Recordings of her mocking James's military service. Recordings of her planning to use Marjorie as unpaid labor while laughing about it behind her back. Phones start buzzing throughout the reception hall. At first, it's just 1 or 2 people checking messages. Then more. Within minutes, every guest is staring at their screens with expressions of growing shock and disgust. "Oh my God," someone whispers. "Did she really say this? About her own mother-in-law?" The 15 children, abandoned by adults who are suddenly absorbed in their phones, begin running wild through the reception hall. They climb on chairs, knock over centerpieces, and chase each other between tables. Nobody stops them. Everyone is too busy listening to Amanda's voice crackling through their phone speakers. She's like having a free maid who pays you for the privilege. Just another old black woman with opinions nobody wants to hear. The whispers grow louder, more pointed, more angry. Amanda stands frozen at the center of it all, her white dress suddenly looking like a spotlight. Her face has gone pale as she realizes what's happening. "That's not," she starts to say. "I didn't mean." But the recordings don't lie. Her own voice condemns her with every word. Guests start standing up, gathering their purses and jackets, shaking their heads in disgust as they head for the exits. "I can't believe you would say such things," Marcus's elderly aunt calls out as she passes. "Your husband's mother deserves respect." "Disgusting," mutters a family friend. "Absolutely disgusting." One by one, the reception hall empties. Wedding gifts are abandoned on tables. The dance floor remains untouched. Children cry as their parents drag them toward the parking lot. Amanda tries to stop people from leaving, her voice rising to near hysteria. "Please, let me explain. You don't understand the context." But context doesn't matter when your own words reveal the content of your character. Through it all, Marjorie stands perfectly still, watching the chaos unfold with the calm expression of someone who has finally achieved justice. She thinks of James, somewhere beyond the reach of cruel words, finally defended by the woman who loved him most. She thinks of her childhood self, scrubbing floors while her family watched television, finally standing up to bullies who thought she would take their abuse forever. Most of all, she thinks of the future, the boundaries she's just established, the respect she's just demanded, the cycle of generational disrespect she's just broken. As the last guests flee the reception hall, leaving behind empty chairs and abandoned cake, Marjorie walks toward the exit with the measured pace of a general leaving a battlefield. Behind her, Marcus and Amanda stand in the wreckage of their wedding day, finally understanding the price of underestimating a woman who spent 30 years bringing down people who thought they were untouchable. The door closes behind her with a soft click. Outside, the sun is still shining. The silence lasts exactly 18 hours. Marjorie spends that time in her Georgetown house, phone turned off, curtains drawn, sitting in James's old chair with a cup of tea growing cold in her hands. She knows the storm is coming. 30 years of law enforcement taught her to recognize the calm before chaos hits. The pounding on her front door starts at 2 p.m. on Sunday. "Mom, open this door right now." Marcus's voice carries the kind of rage she hasn't heard since he was a teenager. But he's 40 now, and the anger has weight behind it. Purpose. The fury of a man whose carefully constructed world just collapsed in public. She opens the door slowly, like she's greeting a stranger. Her son stands on her porch still wearing yesterday's wrinkled dress shirt, his face flushed red with exhaustion and humiliation. Behind him, Amanda huddles in the passenger seat of their car, sunglasses hiding what Marjorie assumes are swollen eyes. "How could you do this to us?" Marcus pushes past her into the living room, his voice cracking. "How could you destroy my wedding? Destroy my marriage before it even started?" Marjorie closes the door and turns to face him with the same calm she used to interrogate suspects. "I didn't destroy anything, Marcus. I revealed it." "Revealed what? That my wife said some things in private? Everyone says things they don't mean when they're stressed." "Some things." The words hang in the air like smoke. "Is that what you call it?" She walks to her kitchen table where her laptop sits open, the audio files still displayed on the screen. "Would you like me to play them again? The part where she calls me a stiff black old woman? Or maybe the part where she laughs about your father's bronze star?" Marcus flinches as if she'd slapped him. "She was venting, Mom. People need to vent. It doesn't mean anything." "It means everything." Her voice stays level, but something dangerous flickers in her eyes. "It means she thinks your mother is worthless. It means she has no respect for the man who raised you while his father served his country." "That's not true." "Then why didn't you defend me, Marcus? Why didn't you defend your father's memory? I have hours of recordings. Hours of her saying these things while you sit there and laugh." The accusation hits him like a physical blow. He staggers backward, shaking his head. "I wasn't laughing at you. I was just, I don't know, going along with it. Keeping the peace." Keeping the peace. She repeats his words with the kind of precision that made federal prosecutors nervous. "Is that what you call watching your wife disrespect your mother? Keeping the peace?" The fight drains out of him suddenly, replaced by something that looks almost like shame. "You humiliated us in front of everyone we know. Our friends, our families, our co-workers. Amanda can't even leave the house. Her sisters won't talk to her." Good. The word comes out sharp and final. Maybe now she understands what it feels like to be dismissed and degraded. "She's my wife, Mom. And I'm your mother. The woman who raised you alone while your father deployed to 3 different war zones. The woman who worked 2 jobs to put you through MIT. The woman who spent $3,000 and 6 weeks planning a wedding for people who think I'm a free maid." Tears start flowing down Marcus's face, but his voice stays angry. "So what happens now? We just never speak again? You destroy my family and walk away?" For the first time, Marjorie's composure cracks slightly. "I don't know, son. That depends on what kind of man you choose to be going forward." He stares at her for a long moment, searching her face for the mother who used to comfort him during nightmares, finding instead the FBI agent who never backed down from a fight. "I can't believe you did this," he whispers. Then he turns and walks out, leaving her alone in the sudden quiet of her empty house. 3 hours later, she's driving toward Quantico Marine Base with a small overnight bag in her passenger seat. Clarence meets her at the visitor's gate, his weathered face creasing into a smile that doesn't quite hide his concern. "Figured you might need somewhere to lay low for a few days," he says, taking her bag. "Base housing has some guest quarters. Nobody bothers retired federal agents here." They walk through the familiar grounds in comfortable silence. Marjorie breathes deeply, inhaling the scent of cut grass and military discipline that reminds her of James. That evening, they sit in the base commissary over coffee and pie. Two old friends processing the fallout from an operation that went exactly according to plan. You know what the best part was? Clarence chuckles, stirring sugar into his coffee. The timing. Right when everyone had their phones out for wedding photos. Pure tactical genius. Better than any FBI sting we ever ran, Marjorie admits, allowing herself a small smile. So what's the damage assessment? How bad is it out there? Marjorie pulls out her phone, scrolling through dozens of missed calls and text messages. Amanda's mother called me 17 times. Her sisters are threatening some kind of lawsuit. Marcus hasn't spoken to me since this afternoon. And I don't regret a single second of it. But as she says the words, something heavy settles in her chest. The victory feels hollow in a way she didn't expect. Clarence, what if I went too far? What if I just lost my son forever? Her old partner reaches across the table and covers her hand with his. Marjorie, in 30 years of partnership, I never once saw you take action without thinking it through completely. You didn't do this for revenge. You did this for respect. But what if respect cost me my family? Then it wasn't really family to begin with. The words hang between them like a verdict. Outside, the sun sets over the military base where James once trained, where honor and dignity still matter more than keeping the peace. But inside the commissary, Marjorie Carter sits with the weight of her choices, wondering if justice was worth the price of her son's love. The answer, she realizes, will depend entirely on what Marcus and Amanda choose to do next. 3 months of silence stretch between them like a canyon. Marjorie goes about her days with the quiet efficiency of someone who has made peace with solitude. Morning walks through Georgetown, afternoon reading in James's chair, evening phone calls with Clarence, who updates her on his grandchildren and asks careful questions about her heart. She doesn't mention the empty spaces where Marcus used to be, the Sunday dinners that no longer happen, the birthday card she wrote but never sent. But the silence isn't peaceful. It's the kind of quiet that comes after explosions, when debris is still settling and no one knows what's left standing. Then, one Tuesday evening in October, her doorbell rings. Through the peephole, she sees them standing on her porch like strangers, asking for directions. Marcus shifts his weight from foot to foot, hands shoved deep in his pockets. Amanda stands slightly behind him, her face pale and drawn. Marjorie opens the door but doesn't invite them in. "Mom," Marcus starts, then stops. The word hangs between them, familiar but somehow foreign after months of separation. "We need to talk," he continues, "about what happened, about what we did." "What you did," she corrects quietly, "not what happened, what you chose to do." Amanda steps forward, her voice barely above a whisper. "Mrs. Carter, I owe you an apology." "You owe me more than that." The words aren't cruel, just factual, like a judge stating sentencing guidelines. They stand on her porch as autumn wind stirs the leaves around their feet. Neighbors might be watching, but Marjorie doesn't care. This conversation happens on her terms, in her space, at her pace. "Can we come in?" Marcus asks. "Please?" She considers this for a long moment, studying their faces like evidence photos. Finally, she steps aside. In her living room, they sit across from each other like diplomats, negotiating a fragile ceasefire. The recordings that started everything still sit on her laptop, closed but present like an unexploded bomb. "I lost my job," Amanda says suddenly. "The partners at my law firm heard the recordings. They said my behavior reflected poorly on the company's values." Marjorie nods but says nothing. Natural consequences have a way of teaching lessons that lectures never could. "Amanda's family won't speak to her," Marcus adds. "Her sisters, her parents, they're all ashamed of what she said." "And what about you, Marcus? Are you ashamed?" Her son meets her eyes for the first time since entering the house. "Yes, I'm ashamed that I let it happen. I'm ashamed that I didn't defend you. I'm ashamed that it took losing everything for me to realize what we were doing to you." Amanda starts crying then, the kind of tears that come from deep places of regret. I was horrible, she whispers. I said things that were cruel and racist and unforgivable. I treated you like you were nothing, when you're the reason Marcus became the man I fell in love with. She looks up, mascara streaking down her cheeks. I didn't understand what respect meant. I thought it was something you could fake when people were watching. But you taught me that respect is something you live every day, in how you treat people when you think nobody's listening. Marjorie listens to the apology with the same careful attention she once gave to witness testimony, searching for truth beneath the words. Why now? She asks. Why come here after 3 months of silence? Marcus and Amanda exchange a look that speaks of long conversations and difficult reckonings. Because we realize that we don't want to be the kind of people who treat family like servants, Marcus says. Because we don't want to pass that poison on to our children. Children? Amanda places her hand on her still flat stomach. I'm pregnant. 8 weeks along. The announcement hangs in the air like a bridge extending across the canyon between them. Marjorie feels something shift in her chest. Not forgiveness, exactly, but possibility. Congratulations, she says carefully. But if you think a grandchild erases what happened, you're mistaken. We don't, Marcus says quickly. We know we have to earn our way back. If there even is a way back. There might be, Marjorie says, but not on the old terms. Not with me as your free maid and unpaid babysitter. Not with you making decisions about my life without consulting me. She stands and walks to the window, looking out at the garden where James's roses are preparing for winter dormancy. If we rebuild this family, it happens with respect as the foundation. Real respect, not performance respect. That means asking for my input before making plans that involve me. It means treating my time and money as valuable. It means acknowledging that I'm not just Marcus's mother or your babysitter. I'm a person with my own life and choices. Amanda wipes her eyes and nods. We understand. And Mrs. Carter, I want you to know that I've been going to therapy, learning about where my attitudes came from and how to change them. I know I have a lot of work to do. We both do, Marcus adds. We want to be better. For you, for ourselves, for this baby. Marjorie turns back to face them, seeing something in their faces that wasn't there 3 months ago. Humility, maybe, or the beginning of wisdom that comes from losing everything you took for granted. Respect isn't requested, she says finally. It's earned. If you want to be part of my life again, you'll have to prove that you understand that. How? Marcus asks. By treating me like family instead of staff. By asking instead of assuming. By remembering that love without respect is just manipulation with better marketing. She sits back down, her posture softer but still alert. If you can do that, if you can show me over time that you've really changed, then we can talk about me being a grandmother. But this time, it happens on my terms. I choose how involved I want to be. I choose when and how I help. I choose the boundaries. That's fair, Amanda says. More than fair. It's a start, Marjorie corrects. The real work begins now. Outside, winter is coming. But inside her living room, something that felt dead is showing the first signs of new life. 2 years later, the book arrives at bookstores across America. Investigating Love, Executing Dignity. How I Used FBI Skills to Break the Toxic Family Cycle. Marjorie holds the first copy in her hands, running her fingers over the cover photo. It shows her sitting in James's old chair, wearing her reading glasses, looking directly at the camera with the quiet strength of someone who has survived everything and chosen to help others do the same. The publishing house wanted a softer image, something more grandmotherly, but Marjorie insisted on this one. I'm not hiding anymore, she told the photographer. I'm exactly who I am, a woman who fought back. The book tour takes her to 12 cities in 6 weeks. Auditoriums filled with women who recognize themselves in her story. Daughters and mothers and grandmothers who have been used, dismissed, and taken for granted by the people who claim to love them. In Chicago, a 4-5-year-old teacher stands up during the Q&A. My adult children expect me to babysit every weekend without asking. They just assume I have nothing better to do. How do I set boundaries without losing them? In Seattle, a retired nurse shares her story about funding her son's wedding while he and his fiancée mocked her behind her back. In Atlanta, an elderly woman talks about being treated like free housekeeping by her own family. Each story is different. Each story is the same. Marjorie listens to them all with the patience she once brought to witness interviews, offering practical advice rooted in 3 decades of reading people and building cases. Document everything. Set clear boundaries. Don't negotiate with people who don't respect your basic humanity. And remember, you taught them how to treat you. You can teach them differently. But it's the quiet moments between events that mean the most to her. Like the afternoon she spends in her Georgetown living room, reading to her 2 grandchildren, while Marcus and Amanda run errands. 3-year-old Emma sits on her lap, turning the pages of a picture book about a little girl who learns to use her words instead of her fists. 2-year-old James, named for his great-grandfather, builds towers with blocks nearby. "Grandma Marjorie?" Emma says, looking up with serious dark eyes. "Why did the little girl get angry?" "Because someone took her toy without asking. But what did she learn to do instead of hitting?" "Use her words." "That's right, sweetheart. We use our words to tell people how we feel. We don't hurt them, even when we're upset." It's a simple lesson the kind grandmothers have been teaching for generations. But for Marjorie, it represents something revolutionary. She's breaking a cycle that goes back decades, teaching these babies that their feelings matter, that their boundaries deserve respect, that love should never require them to shrink themselves to make others comfortable. When Marcus and Amanda return from their errands, they find the 3 of them on the floor, Emma carefully explaining the rules of block building to her baby brother, while Marjorie supervises with gentle guidance. "Thank you, Mom," Marcus says quietly, "for everything, for being here, for giving us another chance." "Thank you for earning it," she replies. The relationship isn't perfect. It probably never will be. But it's built on something solid now. Something that can weather disagreements and disappointments, because respect forms the foundation. A few weeks later, Clarence calls with laughter in his voice. "Marjorie, I just finished your book. Damn good read, even though I lived through half the stories you tell. What did you think?" "I think you made me sound taller and more heroic than I actually am. Also, I'm pretty sure you downplayed how terrifying you were during interrogations." She laughs, the kind of deep chuckle that James used to love hearing. "So, here's my question," Clarence continues. "Do I need to get in line for an autograph, or do 30 years of partnership get me special treatment?" "Depends. Are you buying multiple copies for your grandchildren?" "Already ordered a dozen. Someone needs to teach the next generation how to demand respect." The conversation ends with plans for dinner next week, 2 old friends celebrating a victory that took decades to achieve. 3 months later, Marjorie stands on a stage in Washington, D.C., looking out at an audience of 800 people who came to hear her speak at the National Conference on Family Dynamics. The auditorium is packed. Therapists and social workers, adult children struggling with toxic parents, elderly people fighting for dignity in their own families. She takes a breath and begins. "For 30 years, I investigated criminals who thought they were above the law. I built cases against people who believed their power, made them untouchable. I learned that justice requires evidence, patience, and the courage to act when others would rather look away." Her voice carries clearly through the sound system, reaching every corner of the room. "But the most important case I ever built wasn't against a mob boss or a corrupt politician. It was against the toxic patterns in my own family. The case for my own dignity." Silence settles over the audience like snow. "I want you to understand something that took me 71 years to learn. Justice isn't just for criminals. It's for families, too. It's for every person who has been diminished, used, or disrespected by people who claim to love them." She pauses, looking out at faces that mirror her own journey. You don't have to accept cruelty disguised as family dynamics. You don't have to be grateful for scraps of respect. You don't have to shrink yourself to make other people comfortable. Her voice grows stronger. You have the right to be treated with dignity in your own family. You have the right to set boundaries. You have the right to demand respect, not just request it. The applause starts slowly, then builds like thunder rolling across the auditorium. People stand up, clapping not just for her words, but for the permission she's given them to value themselves. Marjorie looks out at the standing ovation and thinks of James, who always believed she was stronger than she knew. Of Clarence, who taught her that loyalty means holding people accountable, not protecting them from consequences. Of Marcus and Amanda, who learned that love without respect is just manipulation with better marketing. Most of all, she thinks of the little girl who used to scrub floors while her family watched television. The child who swore she would never be used again. She kept that promise, and now she's teaching others how to keep it too.